How much does a safari cost? This is the big question everyone's wondering. Let's break it down in today's video. But first, opening sequence. Hello wildlife watchers, welcome back for an all new Safari Insights video. My name is Jeff Hired, I'm a safari travel advisor. I plan safaris and create Safari Insight videos like this one to help travelers get the most out of their wildlife experiences. Today I'm going to answer the big question, which is how much do safaris cost? And the honest answer is, it depends. To help you understand what factors influence the cost of a trip, I'm going to go over what's typically included in a safari quote. I'm also going to share my safari cost calculator to help you get a rough estimate of how much your trip will cost based on how long you're going and your preferred level of luxury. Keyword there, rough estimate. Now, the absolute best way you can get a custom tailored quote to you based on your trip is to reach out to me directly. If you're interested to go on safari and find out how much it's going to cost in your case, send me a safari inquiry. You can find that linked in the description below. Fill out that form, share some basic info about your trip, how many people will be going, your preferred style, and then I'll be able to custom tailor a quote just for you. If you're not ready for an exact quote just yet, that's okay. If right now you're just curious, in this video I'm going to walk you through how safari trips are typically priced to give you a better sense of what to expect. I'm going to start by going over some variables that affect safari costs. When it comes to figuring out how much your trip will be, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, because the price depends on a number of variables. Variables include when you travel, shoulder versus high season rates, where you go, some countries are typically more expensive than others, the types of activities you want to include, like hot air balloon rides or gorilla trekking, which can be pricey add-ons, and your preferred level of comfort, from entry level to ultra luxury. Understanding how these pieces work together will help you build a realistic budget and plan a safari that fits your style. As I mentioned, some safari destinations tend to be more expensive than others. Countries like Botswana and Rwanda, for example, are on the higher end due to remote lodges, limited permits like gorilla trekking, and access requiring charter flights. Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa, on the other hand, offer a wider range of lodging options, making them more accessible for all budget levels. So let's go over the costs that are included in a safari trip. When we send safari itineraries, the quote will be presented as a comprehensive sum. It's going to be one big number, but this is an all-encompassing experience, an all-inclusive cost that covers things like your accommodations, all your meals, park and conservation fees, all transfers and domestic flights between locations, and of course your safari guides. What's not included are things like international flights to get to and from the continent of Africa, tipping, which is at your discretion, travel insurance, and personal expenses like souvenirs. Most of those are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm often asked about conservation fees. What are those exactly? Each national park or wildlife game reserve that you visit imposes its own daily conservation fees. For instance, on the higher end, the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya during high season charges non-resident adults $200 per person per day. And if you're gonna overnight in the reserve, it's gonna be even more than that. On the other side of the spectrum, let's look at Kruger National Park in South Africa, which offers a significantly lower daily conservation fee of about $28 per person. All of these national parks and private game reserves impose their own fees, and I'm going to tell you now that usually the more exclusive, the more expensive. Another major cost built into safari quotes would be your guides and vehicles. How this is priced out in your quoted itinerary varies depending on the region and the style of safari you're going on. In Southern Africa, lodges often provide in-house guides and safari vehicles as part of a full game package, so your guide and vehicle will be built into your accommodation costs. But in East Africa, where trips tend to cover multiple wildlife parks, there's more overlanding, it's more common to hire a private guide and vehicle for the entire journey. That guide will stay with you from lodge to lodge, which means their daily rate plus fuel and vehicle costs is built into your overall trip cost separately. Whether you have the same guide for your entire journey or experience multiple that work at individual camps, this price is built into the quotes. So we've gone over all the main inclusions and variables, and now that we have that context, have that in mind, I'm now going to share with you my safari cost calculator. This is the formula I use to quickly estimate the costs involved in a safari. Here's the simple formula. We have X times Y equals total cost. X is the daily cost per person, and Y is the number of days on safari. The daily cost per person, X, depends on your desired tier of luxury. Here's a breakdown based on realistic safari pricing. You can see here that entry-level trips are typically $250 to $500 per person per day. For mid-range, it's $500 to $800. In the luxury category, we jump up to $800 to $1,500 per person per day. And then we have the ultra luxury category, which is $1,500 plus. Let's approximate some cost ranges using this formula. For this example, we're gonna assume you're traveling for 8 days. Here on the screen, I've done the math for you. I've calculated the totals that reflect the low and high end of these ranges. So looking at the totals here, if you're gonna travel for 8 days at an entry-level trip, it's gonna be about $2,000 to $4,000 per person. Mid-range, we have $4,000 to $6,400. Luxury, $6,400 up to $12,000. And then the ultra luxury category, which is $12,000 to $20,000 plus. And trust me, there is no cap. These formulas get us pretty close to actual safari pricing, though they can shift depending on destination, season, and extras like internal flights or premium activities that are added. Let's compare these estimates to some real examples to show you how accurate they are. These examples are actual client itineraries that I've sent. This first example is a classic 8-day itinerary covering 3 popular destinations in Kenya: Amboseli National Park, Lake Nakuru, and the Masai Mara National Reserve. Each of these trips are the exact same route, but with different levels of luxury. They are for 2 people sharing, meaning a couple sharing a room and bed. Here I have the totals per person in each category of travel. Let's compare that to the formula. So if we take the total cost per person and divide it by 8 days, we have the totals here of how much it's going to cost each person per day. Entry level, we're just under the 500 mark. That is largely in part because the Masai Mara National Reserve is quite expensive to visit. In mid-range, we're just over $600 per person per day. Luxury, we have $922, and ultra luxury, we are over $1,500. As you can see, the pricing closely aligns with the formula ranges, making it a pretty accurate tool for budgeting a trip. Now let's look at another set of examples. This sample trip combines South Africa and Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, so we're adding a second country. This means internal flights and transfers are included in the total cost. This is a Southern Africa combo trip. We have Greater Kruger involved, which is a safari hub in South Africa. We have Cape Town, which is a popular point of interest people like to include on their trips. And then we have Victoria Falls, which is a natural wonder where there's also all sorts of different activities you can include in your experience. Again, these itineraries follow the same route with pricing based on level of property and service. This is a 13-day, 12-night trip. I have costs listed out here. As you can see on the lower end, it's gonna be about $4,830 per person. And on the higher end, we're looking more at like $12,180 per person. I have done the math for you here where you can see about how much we're spending per person per day. As you can see, these fall right in line with the cost per day estimates. It is important to note that the more destinations you include, the higher the cost, especially when cross-border flights or logistics are involved, but the overall structure remains the same. This kind of breakdown is a great way to help you forecast your own trip costs based on how many days you want to travel, where you want to go, and how comfortably you'd like to do it. It is important to keep in mind that this is a pretty reliable tool for estimating costs right now, but safari costs are subject to increase. This calculator is based on current safari pricing at the time of me posting this video. Safari rates do tend to increase slightly each year due to factors like inflation, park fees, and operating costs. So if you're planning a trip for next year or beyond, it's a good idea to budget a bit of cushion for those annual rate changes. Now you might be wondering, how do people like me and tour operators earn a profit? Certainly these trips must be marked up. This is actually false. Now I can't speak for all tour operators because we all work differently, but for the case with me and the groups I work with, we actually don't mark up any of our safari trips. How is this possible? Well, that's because we work with tour groups and accommodations, lodges directly. The best way to explain this is by giving you an example. So let's say you find a lodge that you want to stay in South Africa. Maybe it's available to book directly online, you find it there, you can reserve it yourself, or you can have us reserve it for you, which will be part of your overall safari trip. The difference is that if you book directly with the lodges, they will collect 100% of the booking amount. Versus if you have us do it for you, you're going to be paying the same exact rate, but we may earn a commission on it. Now, the big benefit of booking it through people like us is that we will custom tailor your entire trip, we'll arrange all the logistics, offer concierge service, 24/7 support at no additional cost to you. So it's definitely a big added value perk to use tour operators like the ones I work with. The next thing I want to address is, do I charge a planning fee? The answer as of now is no. I work with tour operators directly, so I do not charge a planning fee. I'm happy to assist you in planning a trip at no charge, and if you decide to book with a tour operator I suggest for you, I may earn a commission that way. I thought I'd be transparent about this because if you reach out to me right now about a safari trip, it'll cost nothing for me to have that initial conversation with you and share some safari samples and help you get started with planning your trip. Sending you an itinerary sample for you to review and look at is completely complimentary. A quick mention of group trips. For most of this video, I've been talking about private, custom-tailored safaris, but group trips are a great cost-effective option to consider as well. With group trips, you're sharing things like vehicles, guides, and you can get group rates at lodges and camps. And that's a wrap on this Safari Insights video. I hope by watching you gained a solid sense of the costs involved with a safari trip. I totally understand that safaris are not cheap experiences. I've personally invested a lot in my own safari travels, but I've never looked back at those trips with any sort of regret. These experiences have greatly shaped who I am and expanded my world in priceless ways. If you'd like to get an idea of what your specific safari might cost based on your group size, interests, and preferences, feel free to send me an inquiry. My network and I would be happy to create a customized itinerary and provide a detailed quote just for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, insightful, and valuable, don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the like button. I greatly appreciate your support. I'll see you next time for more Safari Insights.